Bride of Frankenstein is a direct sequel to 1931's Frankenstein, also directed by James Whale, also starring Boris Karloff and Colin Clive. We'll get into why was the sequel made, is it any better than Frankenstein, and how does it rank among the Universal monster movies? All this and more this week on the Golden Hour Film Podcast. Hello everyone, welcome back to episode 27 of the Golden Hour Film Podcast, Bride of Frankenstein. I am here this week with my co-host, not guest host, Harry Bailey. How are you doing, Harry?
I'm good, thanks. I'm feeling lucky. Number 27, obviously the most lucky number in the Royal Rumble. Don't know how many times they mentioned that. So yeah, episode 27, feeling great. As you would know if you watched our last week's episode, this is just being recorded straight after The Invisible Man, so we will not be talking about any of the films we watched recently because it is the same ones as last week, believe it or not. How are you?
That's funny how time works. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well since the last 15 minutes ago we spoke. So yeah, we're getting into Bride of Frankenstein this week, and like I said in the intro, it is a direct sequel, obviously, to 1931's Bride of Frankenstein, directed by James Whale and also starring Boris Karloff. Just Karloff, by the way, just credit as Karloff in big bold letters. And Colin Clive also coming back as Dr. Henry Actually, not Doctor. I made that mistake a couple of weeks ago on the episode we did covering Frankenstein. He's not actually a doctor. He never actually finished medical school, so he's just Henry. So yeah, that's my mistake. Yeah, apparently people are getting mad, but not at me, but I've seen people get mad about people making that mistake, so I guess I'm in that camp. But yeah, he didn't actually finish medical school, so he's not actually an official doctor, so he's just Henry.
He's a fraud.
Yeah, he's a fraud.
That's what he is. He's a fraud.
I guess we knew that from the events of the first film. But yeah,
yeah.
Colin Clive, by the way, apparently his alcoholism wasn't in a great place just before this film, so there was some debate whether or not he would come back, but in the end he did come back, but he also had a horse riding accident just days, if not weeks before filming, so that's why we see so many scenes of his kind of bedridden or lying down or sitting down, because he wasn't physically able in this film to...
he broke his legs.
He broke his legs. So, because of the horse riding accident. And also James Whale didn't recast the role because he thought that Colin Clive's hysterical quality was just absolutely essential for the role. And yeah, I think I'm making right on that point, to be honest.
He was right, yeah. Colin Clive is Henry Frankenstein.
Colin Clive is so good in Frankenstein that I think it would have been a big, big mistake to recast him. So if they couldn't get him, you're probably better off just not doing this. And yeah, it's such a weird film because it opens. Yeah, we'll get into the opening when we actually get into the film. But yeah, for anyone who hasn't seen the film, it does open with a pretty interesting first kind of 5 minutes where it brings in like the real Mary Shelley, who obviously wrote Frankenstein for real, and it brings in her real husband. So we'll get into that in a few minutes' time. But I think it's a big swing, and yeah, in my opinion, it does work. Actually, it really does work. But yeah, spoiler-free review, Harry. I know you'd seen Bride of Frankenstein before. I hadn't. What's your spoiler-free review?
I really like it. There's one big major spoiler that you can't... It's so hard to avoid talking about when it comes to Bride of Frankenstein. Yeah. There's a hint, which I'll talk about afterwards. But yeah, it's pretty hard not to talk about that. But besides that, the film itself is very good. It's very human. There's certain scenes where the monster is with this blind man, and they are some of the most like human. I'm gonna say it again because I say it every week. James Whale's fucking good, man. Yeah. He just gets the human elements in his films so right, and it's the humanity in those scenes with the monster and the blind man are like genuinely like they fill your heart. It's so great. I think, Colin Clive, he was obviously in a very dire situation personally. He's not quite the same in this film.
Yeah,
but then,
it's a bit weird. It's a bit different.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see, but like, what can you do, man? Like, he's so good in the first one that you just couldn't replace him. He's not at his best here, but like, he's still Colin Clive. Like, he still does it really well. There's a lot of stuff in here that's great. It's a very iconic movie. I think it's a funny one. I struggle to talk about how I really like it because there are a fair few things that I'm kind of like, take it or leave it on. Not to just like keep harping on, but Una screaming equals acting O'Connor can just fuck off, man. Sorry, James Whale. You're so right about everything except that. She's not funny. She's so irritating. Her character in this film, right? For context, her character is called Minnie, and her character is the maid of Henry Frankenstein. Yet, in any village scene, in any lynching scene, in any scene that is not following the monster directly for most of the film, in any scene in Henry's house, she's there. And she's doing her Una O'Connor thing, which is speaking in a screechy, painful voice and screaming. And it's so irritating because, as I said last week, it's go away heat. It's like, why are you here? Not like, oh, she's a funny character. It's like, no, why are you here?
There is
go back and do your job.
I felt this in The Invisible Man as well. Like, there might be one scene in each film where like it's a little bit amusing or it's a little bit played for laughs, and I did maybe chuckle, but it's like it's way outweighed by the just annoying, over the top. It is go away heat. You said it exactly. Like it just, you just wanted to shut the hell up. Like, I mean, it's
like just go back and start cleaning Henry Frankenstein's house.
And the worst thing is, there are so many scenes in this film where she just shoehorned in without any necessity, like I said, any necessity whatsoever. Yeah. There's no reason for us narratively to be in there. Anyway, we'll go back on to James Whale. I'd say James Wade there, darts player. James Whale. Apparently he was also resistant to the idea of coming back. They kind of Universal kept pitching him over and over again for about 4 years, and he kept saying no, we want to do other things. As you said last week, he didn't want to be kind of pigeonholed as the horror guy, but eventually they did come up with this idea, as we'll come on to at the start of the film, kind of quite meta in certain ways, and that combined with what they would go on to do with the story, that would seduce him to come back. And Elsa Lancaster, who plays both Mary Shelley, and then also she plays the titular Bride of Frankenstein.
She's class.
She's very good in the film, especially in the first scene.
She's so good.
She, just like Boris Karloff in the original, in the opening credits, she's not credited at all. It's just played by a big question mark. So that's a nice.
Love that gimmick.
That's a nice bit of continuation there. Without further ado, I think we've awful enough at this point. We'll get into the Bride of Frankenstein, and we start off with a great score by Franz Waxman. By the way, he's kind of playing in, and he kicks in over the opening credits, as I said, and then much like
Oscar nominated.
Gets some. Yeah, it's a cracking score, and he's a legend anyway, Franz Waxman.
Wait, actually, hang on. Was it nominated for the score or the sound effects?
Good question. I'm not too sure.
Oh, it might have been sound effects. I may be wrong there. I know it got one Oscar nom, and it's either sound or score.
Right.
Continue.
Either way, I think it's really memorable. Whether it wasn't, you know my opinions on the Oscars, so to me it doesn't diminish if it wasn't nominated. It doesn't diminish how good it is.
Of course.
So we get howling wind and a wide shot of like a spooky kind of building, and then we come inside. But unlike kind of Dracula and unlike Frankenstein, it's like three normalish people. They're inside and they're talking as if they are Mary Shelley, and they're talking about the novel as if it's just about to be published, and this is going to get the biggest thing. So it's quite meta at this point. It's pretty clear. And then
they recreated how she actually came up with Frankenstein.
They literally.
So the story goes that they were on a ski holiday, and they all got snowed in, and there was either a snowstorm or there was just a storm. But anyway, they were all stuck in this lodge, and they all started coming up with spooky stories. And Mary Shelley supposedly, on the spot, just came up with the story of Frankenstein, and the rest is history. They were like, that's pretty good, you should get that published. So she then ended up writing the story, and so they decided to include that in the start of this film. But as you said, it's very meta, it's very cool, and I also think it works.
Very talented woman, and we get a narration of what actually happens, obviously in the story, but as that's happening, then we're seeing clips of the first film, just as like a visual accompaniment. This is cinema after all. It's pretty cool. Like, it also means that if you didn't see the first film, it's like a little 3 or 4 minute refresher as to what actually happened. So it works on that level as well. So it's quite smart.
Yeah.
And then she says, "Now I want to tell the rest of the story." So then we cut immediately back to the events of the end of the first film, where the windmill is burning down, and the people who had put the windmill on fire, they're celebrating, they're whooping and cheering and hollering like mad because they think that the monster is finally dead. And Minnie, Una, O'Connor, she gets carried away and she believes the monster is dead. She's dominating every scene she's in for no reason whatsoever, and she's just like she's going on this big mad rant about the monster, he's finally dead, blah blah. Now they finally carry Henry Frankenstein then from the wreckage, and then we cut back to little Maria's mother and father from the first film. The father, as you can understand, he wants to see the body for himself.
He wants closure.
He wants closure. Like, I mean, what a good punch that whole scene was, as we said, from the first film. And then her mother is understandably, by contrast, saying, no, you don't need to see it, like, you know what I mean, but what can you kind of gain? She's a bit, obviously, reluctant for him to do that, but anyway, he goes in, and like I said, he wants to see the body for himself, but then he falls into like a pool of water, and then the camera pans around and we see the monster. He kind of, I think he rises from the water, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he rises from the water, and then that's when we, spoiler alert, it didn't take a genius obviously if the film's been made, but the monster is still alive, and he drowns little Maria's father, which
bit of irony.
That family,
bit of painful irony.
Having a good time there. Yeah, exactly. And his wife, then he's climbing up the ladder, and his wife is starting to help who she thinks is hands up, her husband. And then once she sees his face, then she starts to scream, and then he grabs her and he throws her in as well. And then Minnie sees this whole exchange again. Minnie inserting herself where she doesn't belong, but anyway, she sees this whole exchange and she shrieks and runs away. Una O'Connor in the first half, unfortunately, many such shrieks and screams.
Yeah, it's her calling card. It is safe to say that's all she really does. Fear not, everyone, you can see me now. Yeah, that whole time I was looking and I was like, damn, I'm very dark in this, but the ring light has been brought out and it is somewhat blinding, but here we are. Oh, yeah, and then, of course, my boy, hey, what's all this, is in this film, and he kind of clears the crowd. He's like, all right, the show's over, everyone. It's time to go. And him and Una O'Connor have a back and forth. This is so clearly just James Whale thinks these two people are funny, therefore let's let them just have a scene that has nothing to do with the film where they back and forth, because it's comedy. And, what's all this, manages to clear everybody out of the way. What a legend. So yeah, they find Henry Frankenstein's body. They've put him in the back of a truck at this point, and he's now on his way home to his recast wife. Wife. Soon to be wife, because had a pretty traumatic wedding day, actually. Never ended up happening in the end. His soon to be wife, who's now been recast, he's in a truck on the way back to her. As far as they're aware, he is dead, because that guy is not moving. He is super unconscious.
Yeah, Minnie runs in, and she, once we get back to the castle, Minnie runs in, and you're not gonna believe what happens next. She starts to scream and she starts to shout.
Yeah,
and she says that the monster is.
There's one here. There's one here. It's her worst one. There's one in this scene, and I would actually say this one, like, I actually said, oh, fuck off. Like, there's one in this scene that she does that is her worst shriek, her worst Una O'Connorism in maybe her whole career, right? So let's set the scene. Elizabeth, recast Elizabeth, sees her dead husband, or her presumed dead husband, and he's brought in like a corpse on a stretcher with a blanket over his head. She says, okay, bring him in, and Una O'Connor, Minnie, is the maid, so she also comes in. That's how they got her into this scene. And they bring her out to the table, and it's very somber, because, like, for those who don't know how this film goes, you would be totally remiss to think that maybe he is dead, and it's quite sad. Elizabeth's devastated because it was on their wedding day, don't forget, and she gets quite emotional. And then Colin Clive, Henry Frankenstein's hand just slightly starts to twitch. So Una O'Connor screams as loud as she can. That's not fucking acting. That's not acting. That's just screaming. That's not acting. It was it was her worst one because it was like a genuinely really emotional scene where you think Henry Frankenstein's dead, and instead of like a hooray or an oh my god or a gasp, she just screams as loud as she can.
It's so forced. It really is like it's just in
Ah,
there because it's like right, that's her thing. Like there's no
yeah,
reason for it whatsoever.
yeah. No, it's painful, painful, like a banshee.
Yeah, you're not even wrong. Yeah, then Henry then for whatever reason he starts to rant and about creating life, and he says that he could have trained the monster to do his own bidding, and he could have trained him to kind of be more civilized. But Elizabeth says to him, "Look, that's the devil speaking," and she starts to get quite agitated and upset. And then they hear a knock on the door, and the, one of the slimiest villains I can remember in quite some time,
Yeah,
Dr. Pretorius, who comes in
yeah,
and is
yeah,
just
yeah.
instantly like a hissable, hateable villain. Really good performance, by the way. Actually, don't know who the actor is, but anyway.
I
Um,
don't know. The whole time I just thought he looked like Peter Capaldi, and I don't
he
know
does,
why.
yeah,
I just think like he looks a bit like Peter Capaldi.
but it's a really good, very very camp performance. But he comes in and he says he needs to speak to Mr. Frankenstein Henry about a grave matter at once, and then yeah, he's just looking shifty as hell. This dude. So yeah, he seems like a pompous, you know what, and he tells Henry, look, we need to work together. Um, he starts to kind of guilt trip Henry by saying you're responsible for all those people's deaths. You really think the authorities are just going to forget about that? Like, they're not going to be able to, if they don't find the monster, they're not going to be able to kind of forget about it. They're going to come after someone, and it's you because you built this guy. And Henry's refusing, and he's refusing because he can tell this Pretorius fellow is. I think he knows him anyway, but he knows that he's about a shifty character.
Yeah, he knew him. He was a
Yeah,
psych.
students. Yeah,
What you call it? A a philosophy lecturer
yeah, it's a
in
student of
college.
his. Yeah,
Yeah, but he doesn't recognize himself as that. He says that he, like Frankenstein, is a scientist,
yeah,
and he's got some experiments he's got, and basically, yeah, he is trying to emotionally blackmail Henry into helping him recreate what Henry did because he also has successfully created life. And Henry's like, Henry Frankenstein is such an interesting character because although his morals say one thing, he's just so like scientifically driven. Like he has so many questions about life that as soon as like someone asks a good scientific question, he just can't help but like get involved. So whenever this guy is like, well, I've also managed to bring the dead to life. Henry's like, oh, I got to see this. Yeah, no, I have to see this. So he puts his jacket on and they go to Pretorius's place, and Pretorius shows him these are really fun effects.
yeah. Really good.
His creations, which are in these four little glass domes. They're kind of like action figure sized people.
By the way, before he says that, sorry to cut across you, but he has this probably the best line of the film, I'd say, where he goes, "Welcome to a new world of gods and monsters." That's so sick.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's so villainous.
Yeah, he's very good in this. In fairness, and yeah, so he's got a queen. He made a queen first, and then he made a king, and then the king couldn't help but lust over the queen, and like still does. Like he's trying to get out of his glass jar to get over to the queen. He made an archbishop who just kind of sleeps in his chair all day and does nothing.
A devil.
And then he made the devil,
Yeah.
and he made the devil in the image of himself. And
Yeah.
he has another good line where he's like, wouldn't life just be far more better? Sorry, wouldn't life be much better if everyone was like the devil?
It was like, yeah, it's so fun.
Yeah,
So
he's
villainous.
great. But yeah, basically his whole thing is he's made these miniature, literal like actions figure size people come to life, but he wants to do what Henry did. He wants like a proper.
Human sized, yeah.
Yeah, because we figure out later on his real motives, but for now he just wants to also make a human-sized monster from the dead, which is what Henry very much achieved in the previous film.
He also says to Henry that they could create a man-made race together, and also then he starts to seduce Henry with the idea we could create a mate for the monster. So a woman who obviously could then become a partner of the monster. Yeah. So then we cut to the monster starting to wander through the woods, and a woman falls in the waterfall, and he goes over to help her, but because she's obviously knows what he is, and she knows he's murdered a bunch of people, and yeah, the size of Boris Karloff obviously doesn't help. She starts to scream in terror, and then that makes him panic because yeah, he's trying to be kind because, as we said in the Frankenstein episode, like he doesn't try to hurt anyone, he doesn't try and hurt him. But anyway, once she starts to scream, then these two guys who were in the hunting party for him, they hear her, sorry, and they run over, and once they see the monster, then they start to try and shoot the monster. Yeah. But he escapes, and then another manhunt for the monster then obviously happens because of that.
Yeah, he goes off on the run, and he's running through the woods. They're all shooting at him and stuff, and eventually he gets atop this big ledge. There's one guy who's like pursuing him with a rifle, and another guy's going back to the village, and he's basically created another lynch mob, and the mob catch up to him. But yeah, he's on top of this little sort of mini cliff, and he pushes a boulder on top of two people, which is pretty cool. But the rest of the crowd just kind of catch up to him, and they hold him down, and they tie him down, and they tie him to a big ass log, and then Minnie's there. Like
for no
like
reason.
Why? Anyway,
Exactly.
and yeah, so they pick Frankenstein up, and they put him in the back of a truck that he can't get out. Obviously, he's tied. The truck brings him to the local jail in the village, and they throw him in the dungeon. And then we get this really cool sort of, the dungeon set is class. He gets put into this giant chair where he's basically bolted in on his shoulders and in his hands. And again, Minnie's there. She's just outside the prison now, and she's shouting in at him.
It's so
It's so forced. It doesn't feel like a character. It just feels like James Well is like trying to get one of his mates paid, basically.
That's it.
And yeah, doesn't take long for Frankenstein's monster to break out of the shackles. He busts through the door of the dungeon. He knocks one policeman to the floor, and then it's pretty funny. We go outside, and what's all this? Is like, don't worry, it's just a madman on the loose. Nothing the police can't contain. And then the monster just busts through the door, and they're like, "Oh my god!" And he just legs it. He does a runner, and he's gone. And yeah, the monster has broken out of prison. He's free of his shackles, and he heads off. They start finding so then they start like finding bodies. It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of strange because they find a young girl who's been slain. But that doesn't fit in with Frankenstein's MO, so I wonder what actually happened there. Because obviously they're looking for Frida, and they're all looking over the village, and there is a cool part in this scene. But they're all looking for Frida, and she's there outside the school, like dead.
Yeah, it was a weird scene, alright. Not really explained well. Well, the monster smells some food, and he attacks a man in self-defense who tries to attack him. But then a little bit later, he's kind of wandering, and he's disorientated, and he's hungry, and he's a bit peed off. He sees a cabin, and he hears music playing, and the song playing is Ave Maria, and obviously Maria is the name of the girl from the first film. Now the monster doesn't know that, I'm sure, but obviously it's a nice little bit of connective tissue between the two films. Yeah. And Ave Maria is a beautiful song, and yeah, the monster kind of starts to get really emotional and kind of overwhelmed by this beautiful song. So he starts to get attracted to the cabin, and looks inside. There's a man playing a violin, and kind of once the man kind of catches wind that there's someone outside, he kind of tells them to come in. We figure out that the man is blind, and yeah, he starts to be really, really kind towards the monster. The first time probably anyone has shown him any bit of kindness, apart from Maria, I suppose. He realizes the monster is non-verbal. He can't speak, but you can understand him, because when he's saying some stuff, he kind of grunts, or he kind of nods or whatever.
Yeah. He says, "If you can understand me, put your right hand on my shoulder," and he does it straight away. So,
Then the man comes out with an incredible line. He says, "I have prayed many times for God to send me a friend." Yeah, so two lonely kind of souls, kind of being attracted to each other here, obviously in a platonic way, obviously, I think. But anyway, he gives the monster food, and he obviously doesn't know that the monster, what his track record is at this stage. But yeah, he says that they're going to look after each other, and it's a really beautiful scene, because It's the first time probably that the monster, like I said, has been shown kindness, and according to this blind man, it's the first time that he's been shown kind of any bit of attention or kindness for a while as well. So yeah, two lost souls kind of connecting here.
Yeah, and the blind man then starts to teach him how to speak. He gives him some basic words, the essentials, you know. So actually, first he lets the monster sleep, and it's really interesting that as he's kind of like putting him to bed, it's when it starts to fade into black, the only thing that we still see on the screen is Jesus on the cross.
Yeah.
And we get that image a few times in this film of the monster next to Jesus on the cross, which is interesting. Because, you know, the whole like imagery of Henry Frankenstein as God, and you know, Frankenstein's dying for our sins and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then the next morning in the man's house, he teaches him a few words. Bread and wine are the first two. Again, another sort of religious connotation there. But then not so religious, he also teaches him how to smoke, which is pretty funny, because obviously from the previous film, Frankenstein is scared of fire, and when he lights the match to start the smoke, Frankenstein freaks out. But then, because he's teaching him, like, there are good things, there are bad things. So it's like, bread, good. Wine, good. Smoking, good. Friends, good. So, yeah. So then Frankenstein's like, no, fire bad. And he's like, no, smoking's good. Smoking's good. So he has a smoke and he gives it to Frankenstein, and Frankenstein just starts...
The monster.
Yeah, so, sorry. The monster.
There's people in the
smoking
comments.
that thing. There's people who would be lynching me right now.
Yeah.
They put me in a windmill and burn it down for saying that. So I appreciate that. But yeah, he starts smoking the cigarette, and he's just having a good old time.
Yeah.
It's just nice.
It's
a really nice part of the film.
He's living his best life at this point. But yeah, it doesn't last for long, because two men arrive, and once they realise that it's the monster, all hell breaks loose. Basically, they start to kind of berate the blind man, because they're like, they don't know what this guy did. He's terrorising the town. He's murdered however many people at this point. And the fight breaks out, and the cabin then burns down. I think accidentally. I don't think it was on purpose. It was from
it
the
is an
smoke.
accident. I think there's a scuffle, and Frankenstein gets shoved into this pot which is on the fire, and then it like catches. Fuck. the monster gets pushed into this pot, which like knocks a load of coals off the fire, and then it sets some wood on fire. It's a bit of a Rube Goldberg thing. And they get the blind man out, but the monster is stuck, like trapped in the corner of the house for a little while, and he just starts panicking. And sadly, that's the last time we see his friend. We don't see him for the rest of the film, which is just sad.
Yeah, the monster at this point is really angry, and he's just causing destruction. He goes to the cemetery as well, because there's people following him, and he has a bit of a brainwave. In fairness to him, he kind of sees that there's like a passage underground, so he goes underneath there, and the mob following him don't clock that. So when he goes down, he hides in this cellar away from the angry mob. But then three other men start to arrive, one of which is Dr. Pretorius from earlier, the hissable villain. And they start to steal a body then from one of the coffins. So I think the other two men, it's implied that basically they're grave diggers. They work in the cemetery.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
They work in the cemetery.
One of them is played by Dwight Fry as well.
Yeah, one of them is played by Dwight Fry. So they have been enlisted by Pretorius to steal a body from one of the coffins, and then Pretorius just starts cackling like a sick,
Carl Dwight Fry has a great line here as well. So they ask like, oh, who's the girl that we're stealing? And he's like, oh, it's the body of a 19-year-old girl who died recently. And the two gravediggers look at each other, and they're like, Jesus, man, this is a bit heavy.
Yeah.
And when they do then leave with the body, Carl goes to the other guy. He was like, If we're doing more than this... Sorry, the other guy goes, oh, if we're doing this anymore, I'd rather just be hung. And Carl's response is, this is no life for two murderers. It's a great one-liner.
Good old Dwight Fry, man. He brings the goods no matter how small his role is. Pretorius is just toasting his own master plan. And that's when then the monster approaches. He's been kind of hiding this whole time, but he approaches, and you would think that it would knock Pretorius off his game, but actually he just relishes the fact that like it seems like he almost planned for this, or at least he's been waiting for this moment, because he starts to offer the monster some wine, and they eat with each other, and the monster says,
another good line as well. He offers him a cigar and he goes, "Cigars
good
are my only weakness."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it's funny. He gives Frankenstein the cigar, and the monster,
The monster,
he gives the monster the cigar, and the monster just eats the cigar. He doesn't even smoke it. He just eats the whole thing.
Yeah. So the monster figures out that Pretorius is going to be making a woman like him, so he's going to be obviously kind of building his own female version of the monster. And Pretorius then thinks they can use the monster. He's all these like things going on in his head. The wheels are turning in his head, and he realizes he can force the monster. So he can force Henry to cooperate with him, because he's going to basically induce the monster onto his own side. He's going to get the monster on his side, and he's going to get the monster then to like physically threaten Henry if he doesn't help.
Yeah, and he tells the monster as well. He tells the monster, "Yes, I'll give you a friend." And the monster's like, "Sorry," and he says, "Yeah, it's going to be a woman." And he's like, "Oh, a wife."
Yeah.
And that's it. Like that is the monster's motivation now for the rest of the film. He's experienced friendship. Now he wants a wife.
It's funny because
he just wants someone like him.
I love how between the two films you can really like, it's like an absolutely rapid development of like childhood to adulthood to like obviously because the first few days obviously he was acting really like a child, like adolescent, and then by the end of the film obviously then he starts to mature and people are starting to kill him. And then in this film then he's gone through the stages of like friendship, and he's gone through the stages of, it's just like, it's really smart how they've, within the space of a few days, he's going from basically being born to like obviously being seduced by the idea of a wife of someone like him. It's really clever stuff.
Yeah. And Pretorius goes to Henry's mansion. Again, the only good scene of Minnie. She's like, "Oh, Pretorius is at the front door. I'll better make sure he doesn't get in." And she leaves, and he literally just comes from the other door. Like, as she closes it, he just walks in the room from the other entrance. That's pretty funny. But maybe it was funny because it's just Minnie leaving the scene. Yeah, no, that's mean.
Minnie looking like an idiot as well.
Yeah. But he's just trying to convince Henry to help him make a monster. And Henry's like, "No, I've changed my mind again. I keep changing it, but I've changed it again. I'm not doing this thing." It's kind of like when someone's trying to convince someone in a movie to like go to the pub, and he's like, "Oh, I can't. The wife will kill me." It's like, "Oh, I can't make it. I can't make another undead person. The wife will kill me." But no, he does mean that.
I love how that's his reason as well. It's like not the people who have been murdered because of your creation. It's like
it's like
the missus. Like
yeah. But yeah, he won't do it, and he's soon somewhat swayed because Pretorius is like, "All right, well, what about this fella? Why didn't you talk to this guy?" And the monster just like comes in, and it's the first time that the monster and Henry have interacted in a long time anyway, and it's pretty interesting. Henry basically wants nothing to do with it. It's kind of interesting. He won't accept any of the blame for what the monster's done. Really, he doesn't really take any of the blame, and he just doesn't. He doesn't even want to look at the monster because I think he's so afraid of actually realizing the errors of his ways.
Yeah,
he's so afraid of like the actual what's happened, and he can't even look at the monster. So he demands the monster gets asked to leave. So Pretorius tells the monster to leave, and the monster does leave. And in a similar-ish scene to the previous film, the monster just makes a beeline for Elizabeth's window, climbs in the window, steals her, and pulls her out of the room. And then Minnie runs in just at the last second, and instead of like catching up or anything, she screams. She screams really loud.
Who saw that coming? Henry. This does induce Henry to help Pretorius. Says, "Look, I'll help you," and then Elizabeth needs to be returned to me. She needs to be let go once we do. So we cut to Pretorius's lab, and again, like the first film, cracking scene, like really, really visually imaginative. They start to experiment, but they find a problem with the first heart of the woman that they had, like who of the woman whose body they stole. They find a problem with that, so they bribe. I think they bribe Dwight Fry, don't they?
Yeah, it's Carl.
Yeah, they bribe Carl, aka Dwight Fry, to find them another heart. So the monster intimidates Henry into working, and yeah, Henry at this point is obviously he's almost trying to like persuade them to let him go. He's like, this isn't gonna work, but it's weird.
Yeah.
Like it's weird how he doesn't think it's It's weird how he thinks they're gonna let him go. Anyway, Pretorius then gives the monster a drug. This is a bit weird to me. I don't know why he did this. Like the monster is doing everything he wants. So.
Oh no! So the monster comes in when Henry's falling asleep, and the monster's like shaking Henry, and he's like, "Work, work, 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 work."
And he thinks
and Henry's like, "I can't work. I can't work in
That's
these conditions." And Pretorius is like, "Right, fine, I'll get rid of him." So he drugs the monster, making him think that it's wine, and he takes a big gulp of it and just passes out.
That's right.
And so Henry says, "Right, this heart won't do. If we're gonna do it, we'll do it. Like, let's just get it over with. But I need a young heart. I need a fresh heart. I need a heart of someone who's just died." And Pretorius bribes Carl, and he's like, "Right, Carl, I need you to go to the recent accidents ward in the hospital." And Carl's like, "Yeah, sure, that's where I'm going to go." And he just goes outside. First young person he finds, he just chloroform kills her, takes her heart. And he comes back. Yeah, it's very dark. Comes back, gives the heart, and firstly, Henry's like, "Oh my god, that's amazing! Like, I can't believe we got one." And he starts experimenting, and then he kind of like goes, "Wait,
where did you get this?
How did you get this so soon?"
Exactly.
And he's like, "Oh, I bribed a gendarme." And he was like, "What gendarme did you bribe?" And he was like, "Oh, it was just a policeman. I gave him like 50 quid or whatever, and he let me into a recent criminal case, and I managed to get the heart." And Henry just kind of goes, "All right, fine." Like he's a very morally corrupt character, as Henry Frankenstein, to say the least. He's entirely driven by science.
Morally flexible. This, by the way, this scene now where they start to experiment with the new heart, really sick in terms of how it's shot. Like there's lots and lots of Dutch angles, and it's just weird angles, and it's disorientating.
Really well lit.
Purpose,
yeah.
Really well lit. Good performances from the two guys. It slaps like the experimental scene in the first film. It slaps. Again, similar weather conditions as well. It's howling outside, howling wind, thunder, lightning, and they use kites then to lift the electrical equipment up. Pretty smart actually. They use because they don't have the necessary equipment that Henry did in his own lab, or in the lab that he was using in the previous film. They use kites to kind of lift it up and be able to get the leverage. The body lifts up, and lightning strikes. So in a way, lightning literally strikes twice, because it struck in the first film and it struck here. Pretty clever.
And meanwhile as well, the monster just kills Carl.
Yeah, the monster wakes up. And
he just goes up to the roof, and he's pissed. He's so pissed, and Carl's just there and starts waving fire in front of him, which, like, bro, have you not learned your lesson? Have none of you guys learned your lesson? Don't wave fire in front of the monster. He won't respond to it in the way you think. So he literally just grabs him, see you later, off this giant tower that they were on, and they just continue with the experiment, because at this point anyway, they've no idea down there that Carl has just been thrown to his death.
Yeah. So once the body is lowered down, then we get that iconic line again, calling back to the first film. "She's alive," screams Henry. So it's just iconic, obviously, and you need that in there. Like as much as it's obviously a bit
like fan servicey,
a bit fan servicey. You do need it, because it is the iconic line from the first film, and you probably it would feel like a little bit lesser of a film without it. So they remove her gown and she's dressed up, and then Pretorius, once they put like the silver in her hair and they dress her up, Pretorius declares her to be the bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, and two things worth noting here. You've probably noticed that we have just spoken about The Bride of Frankenstein, and we are about 40 minutes into this episode. It's literally like seconds of screen time, spread over the last few minutes of the film, but like seconds. It's like less than a minute on screen. In the last, say, 3 or 4 minutes of the film she gets. And this is where people would talk about the gay connotations in subtext in this film, because this whole time we're like building it up as if like, oh my god, they're gonna make a bride for Frankenstein, and it just goes such a clever way. It's such a ingenious ending where as soon as she sees the monster, she fucking loses her mind. She is terrified of him. She wants nothing to do with him. Like it's such a great pulling the rug from under the audience. It's so great because you expect them to just go all like they like hold hands or something, and they like say they love each other.
Start like a rain.
Something else happens or something. Yeah. But no, she is just absolutely petrified of the monster. And this literally, like Ralph Wiggum when he chose Lisa, you can just see his heart break in front of your very eyes. And he's devastated because he realizes what's happening here, because he like puts his hand out to her like as slowly and as kindly as he can. He puts his hand out. And she is so scared.
He puts his hand out and he says friend, and she's initially like resistant. And then he puts his hand on her hand and he starts to kind of caress it in a way. And then that's when she just completely freaks out, and it's really
She wants nothing to do with that man, nor any man. And so Frank, the monster, just gets a bit pissed. It's safe to say. He's mainly upset, but he just kind of gets up and he's like, "Oh man, fuck this!" And he goes near this giant lever, which is just, why would you install it in the first place? Yeah. Because Pretorius goes, "No, don't pull that lever. That's the lever that blows the whole tower up." Now, within the context of the film, it makes more sense, because it's like the amount of shit that's going on with the storm and everything, that would like, I don't know, it would like increase the like, I don't know, it would like, just all the electricity would just like fucking harness into one machine, and it would be too much for the machine or something, and it would blow up. Like there's like a scientific reason, but like just from the outside, it's so funny. It's, no, don't go near the lever that blows the building up. We're still inside. It would reduce us all to atoms, he says. And at this point, then, recast Elizabeth shows up. She actually was quite good, by the way.
She was all right.
She was all right. She shows up and she's like, "No, please, Henry, come, let me save you," or whatever, or let me in there at least. And Henry's like, "Oh, get away." And the monster decides, "No, you two can live." And he buys Henry enough time for him to run at the door, and then he says to Pretorius and the bride, he goes, what is it?
We both belong dead.
Yeah, we both belong dead. And he pulls the lever, and that whole tower just blows the fuck up. Collapses in on itself. Henry and Elizabeth get out of there in time. The monster, the bride, and Peter Capaldi have all died, seemingly, in this big tower. And that's it. That's Bride of Frankenstein. The bride got like no screen time, and yet she was fucking iconic. She was so good.
She probably legit has less than 60 seconds of screen time, and yet, like, I will admit there was, just after the film ended, I was like, is that it? Like, in a way, I expected more, but then once I thought about it, like, it doesn't certainly you can never accuse the film of overusing the bride. But also when you look at it as like a proxy, or as like a metaphor for Mary Shelley, again the scene at the start of the film, and then the whole scene of she created Frankenstein, she created kind of the monster, she created the monsters, like almost like trying to draw parallels between the bride and Mary Shelley. It's really, really clever when you think of it from that point of view. As far as I'm concerned, it's a really satisfying sequel. Probably better than I expected it to be honest. Like, a lot of these sequels, we all know sequels, many of them do just seem like a cash grab. But whereas this, it did seem like there was a lot of thought put into it. And like, unfortunately, Colin Clive wasn't in the best physical shape. Clearly wasn't in the best emotional state, really, I'd say, either, because some of his line deliveries were a bit kind of subdued, I would say. But Boris Karloff really obviously gets more to do from a dialogue point of view, and he really crushes it. Like really,
And he supposedly was so
yeah.
against the monster being able to speak. Like, he campaigned against the idea that the monster would have lines in the
To be
film.
fair to him, that's
And he was
unselfish as well,
overruled.
because most actors are campaigning for extra lines, aren't they? So
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be fair,
yeah.
like he had an idea, and he obviously had an idea for what he thought the character should be. But in my opinion, actually, it does really work out well because, like I said, it's like this really, really, really kind of fast development of a childhood into adolescence. Into teenage years, into like obviously adulthood, etc., over the span of a few weeks. So from that point of view, it makes sense that he would kind of learn how to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the guy who plays Pretorius, really, really hissable villain, and he kind of takes the heat off of Henry as well, and kind of takes the heat off of Colin Clive as well, because Colin Clive wasn't, as we keep saying, he wasn't really in the best shape. So Pretorius was able to take on that kind of evil mastermind, kind of persona in a way that maybe would have felt a bit missing otherwise. So yeah, to me, I really liked it. I really admired it. I gave it 4 stars. Yeah, it's a really satisfying sequel. What about yourself?
Yeah, I really liked it as well. I also gave it 4 stars. I think it's brilliant. I feel bad. Ernest Thesiger
Ernest Thesiger. Good
is
shout out to
Pretorius.
Ernest. Yeah.
Yeah. He had a few films. He was also in The Old Dark House with
Nice.
Karloff and James Whale, and he did A Christmas Carol as well. Yeah, so I thought it was brilliant. I think it's a very good sequel. The first time I watched Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, I preferred Bride of Frankenstein. Now I think it's closer. I think I just really like the effects in the first one. So yeah, I'm not sure which one I prefer now. It's a lot tougher this time.
I think this version
But
is well, not version, but I think this sequel is slightly campier than the original. I think the original
Yeah,
picked a really, really dark tone and stuck with it throughout, whereas this,
yeah,
like the friendship scene with the old man, the blind man in the cottage, that's really beautiful. And there's a couple of, I mean, leaving all the mini stuff aside, because that's
glimpses. Yeah,
they're trying to play that for laughs, but it's not funny. So even leaving that, but they are still trying to play for laughs. But there are also other camp moments. Boris Karloff does get a couple of funny moments in there, so I think it's definitely going for a slightly more offbeat vibe, I would say, this film.
yeah. I would agree, definitely. Yeah, like him smoking and eating the cigar and some of the one-liners and stuff. Yeah, and then how camp Pretorius's character is in general.
Yeah.
Is totally different tonally to the first one. But yeah, I that's not to say that I prefer the first one. I really need to think about it, because I don't know which one I do prefer.
I think as a pairing, I know there's like Son of Frankenstein, which I haven't seen, and then House of Frankenstein and stuff. Like as a kind of as a kind of double billing, it really does actually work really well together, because, like I said, it could have come across like a cash grab, and maybe in a way it was, to be honest. Maybe in a little way it was, but
Yeah, they were losing money at this point.
they did manage to justify its existence, I think, by the meta elements, and kind of what they do bring to the table in terms of what they do with the monster, what they do with Frankenstein, and so overall I was really satisfied by it. And yeah, that's our arc on Universal monster movies finished. So yeah, we've done Dracula, Frankenstein, The Invisible Man, and Bride of Frankenstein. Just quickly, what would your favourite be from those 4 films?
Invisible Man.
Yeah,
no
same.
hesitation.
Yeah, same.
Invisible Man. No hesitation at all. Fucking love that movie.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
James Whale obviously directing 3 of those 4 films, but like Bela
Legend.
Lugosi, Boris Karloff, Claude Rains. Yeah, Claude Rains. I forgot his name there. God.
Yeah.
Claude Rains, the motherfucking man. Yeah, that's our arc on the Universal monster movies. But obviously there's others, but yeah, it's Halloween season, so
There's some great other ones as well, like that are worth a go. If you like them 4 and they're the only 4 you've seen, I would highly recommend checking out Creature from the Black Lagoon and The Wolfman. They are both very, very good. I really like both of them. Jack. I don't know. Have you seen many of Jack Arnold's films? Jack Arnold is like, for me, he's like the king of the B movies.
I think I might have seen 1 or 2. Yeah. I
Yeah,
think at
he
least
did
one.
Creature from the Black Lagoon. He did The Incredible Shrinking Man, and he did. I think he did It Came from Outer Space. I think he did. He do Tarantula as well. Like, these are all films I've seen, and I can't remember if they're Jack Arnold or not. But like, he is like the guy when it comes to B movies. And obviously these aren't B movies; these were like A movies at the time. But like when you get to the 50s and you have Creature from the Black Lagoon come out, like obviously history, we've learned it's actually phenomenal. But yeah, the B movie aspect is so fun, and yeah, I think B movies might be a fun topic eventually for us to cover. Maybe next Halloween, I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, as far as next week goes, next month, we are doing Noir-vember. Yes, I am very excited. So, what I'm gonna do is, for all of those who are still listening, is on the Instagram on Sundays going forward, I will put up the case, which the answer will be what we'll be covering that week. I'll then announce what the episode is on the Instagram on the Wednesdays. So you have between Sunday and Wednesday to try and figure out what the film is. You'll find out on the Wednesday evening time, we'll say, and yeah, that'll be a bit of fun. So if you're trying to figure it out, please do like comment on the Instagram what film you think it is. I'll try not to make them too obvious. I'll try and keep it as hidden as I can. But yeah, so next week, Noir-vember. I'm not telling you what it's going to be. You can find out on Wednesday. But on Sunday, the case will go out and you have to try and solve it. Yeah. So yeah, we've 5 Fridays in Noir-vember, so we've 5 noir films coming soon. What a great genre.
Yeah, cracking genre. One of my favourites. Yeah, a couple of films in there that I haven't seen and a few that I have seen. So the ones that I have seen, certainly I can speak to. Think we've picked wisely. Look, there are certain noir films that that you can probably figure out what they might be, but again, check out on Instagram and give us a follow and try and see if you can work it out. It's going to be really fun.
And yeah, so that was Universal Monster Month, a fun little 4-week arc, but got to celebrate Halloween. So yeah, surely by now my tier list video has gone out. It would have had to have by now. So yeah, as far as shorter videos goes going forward, we're just going to kind of play it by ear, I reckon, either depending on what comes out that week or depending on how we're feeling. Because, not to say that Halloween, kind of forced us into a corner or anything with horror films, but, it's safe to say that now that we are doing these short videos more often, we can kind of just do whatever we want, short videos-wise, going forward.
I think Halloween gave us a good excuse to maybe pick those stuff up because there have been
bit of structure.
Quite a lot of remakes, when it comes to these Universal horror movies. So we were able to kind of the Invisible Man episode, the Dracula episode. We were able to kind of tie in some remakes and some other interpretations of kind of different source materials. So yeah, that's all up there for you to check out as well.
Yeah, we'll do some more Who Did It Betters for sure. But besides that, we'll do other stuff as well. We're gonna really kind of get into our creative bags and start pulling out all sorts of short videos coming soon. But yes, we're into the month of, well, actually this is before Halloween even happens, but we're into the month of Noir-vember as of right now.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a good one. It's going to be very, very good. I can't wait. I'm buzzing.
Yeah. Noir films, if you love noir films, it's going to be for your bag. If you maybe haven't seen too many noir films, I think the films we've picked out, they're a really good introduction to noir films. And yeah, they're just banging
definitely.
Films. Yeah, so.
It's a great little subgenre, and I might even put together a list on Letterboxd or something of some essential noirs for people who maybe haven't seen them. I'll throw it in the description.
We've already covered one great noir film, by the way, Sweet Smell of Success. So yeah, go and check that out if you haven't seen
class film.
Maybe check out that film and the podcast episode we did on that. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, Sweet Smell of Success is a great film, and there's many more to come over the next 5 weeks.
Yeah. So, in the meantime, I've been Harry Bailey.
I've been Shane Mulvaney.
And that was Universal Monster Month. Thank you very much, and see you next week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.